So welcome everybody to the recording now. We are going to talk about QBRs today. While we waited in the Zoom room, we polled everyone and asked everybody's favorite taco shell, taco protein, and whether or not they were cilantro lovers or if it tasted like soap to them. And 50% won the soft shell corn taco was the chosen shell, 50% beef. And then 75% love cilantro, 25% say it tastes like soap, which I think goes along with the regular results on that. So we're talking about tacos and QBRs today. So if you haven't met me before, I'm Marnie Stockman, CEO of Lifecycle Insights, and we are a QBR reporting platform. We aim to make it easy for MSPs to sell to execs, not techs. I presented last week with Juan Fernandez at Exchange, and we had lots of good conversations around QBRs and lots of questions on follow-ups of what that might look like. So we did another webinar with Great America last week, same thing, where folks were asking for a deeper dive into what goes into a good QBR and what that might look like in Lifecycle Insights. So that's why I'm here today. If that's not why you were here today and you just want to talk tacos, I have a little more taco portion of this, and then we'll get into actual QBRs. And so if that doesn't meet your needs, the door is right there. I don't want to hold anybody hostage, but would love for you to stay and chat QBRs with me. So I asked you 3 questions. I asked you what shell you liked for the taco. I asked you what protein, what meat you liked for the taco. And then I asked you about a topping. And we're going to kind of look at QBRs in the same way. So in the land of protein, I've got the protein packed inside the wrapper. So I'm going to start with one edge of the wrapper and then talk about the meat of the QBR. So at the beginning is the agenda. And I want to pause for a minute about the agenda. For the record, if that's not easy to see at the end, I will cut and paste all of this so that you can grab it. So don't feel that you need to frantically screenshot or take notes. So let's talk about the agenda, and then I'll talk about how we landed here. So when QBRs first started, so before the QBR, MSPs were break fix, right? Like that, it was a whole different world of what IT business owners look like. And then along came 2008 when things started to happen remotely, right? It got expensive. That's when we had economic downturn and everything got very expensive. And so we realized we could save folks money by operating remotely, and therefore less travel, could charge a monthly expense and call it managed services. Other people have different reasons for how they got to managed services, but that's the way Alex Farling, my business partner, talks about how he landed in doing managed services. But in doing so, he found he lost the relationship between the client because everything was done remotely. So it became the thing to do is to remind people of why they were using your services, right? So you started talking about, I patched your machine this many times, I stopped this many, spam emails from coming through, we had antivirus up, all of these pieces and parts that you then talked about in what became known as a business review, but it was really justifying why they were paying your bill. But we have matured in technology and as an industry, and really it needs to be much more strategic, right? So now the business review needs to be about business and not so much about patch stats, etc. Oh, I hope I'm not. Let's solve that problem. I'm being asked, is my audio a problem for anyone else? Okay, all right. Sorry, Jennifer, maybe we can try the IT. Can you log out and log back in again? Okay, thank you, Matt and Nathan, for chiming in on that one. So how has, as the industry, the technology has improved, right? Business owners are well aware that their machines are getting patched, right? I get a notification every morning, like it's time for an update. We're well aware that spam is being stopped, that viruses are being stopped, et cetera. So that's not the type of work that they necessarily want reports on. We know when we have tickets going in, et cetera. Sounds like I have soap in my mouth is what I'm hearing in the chat. So at this point, we really need to think about If businesses aren't wanting to come to a business review, it is probably because it's not driving business for them, growth for them, or value for them. And that's hard. It's like soapy cilantro to swallow. It doesn't taste very good if you're hearing that for the first time. So what can we bring to a business review, right? How can we start a business review so that it brings value to your clients? The first key lies in the agenda because that sets the stage for what it's going to be. And more importantly, that agenda should come well in advance of the business review. So how I landed at Lifecycle Insights, I used to run customer success for a large ed tech organization. And we had clients that were paying us $1.7 million a year. We had clients that were paying us $15,000 a year. And they all needed the same type of work, but they did not need it the same way. The $1.7 million a year client had an individual person that was just focused on using our services, and they get all the attention they need, and they wanted it a lot. They wanted weekly meetings. They wanted quarterly executive business reviews, etc. The 15,000 a year, that person that was the project manager for that, it was one of 18 things that they did. They barely had time to read an email once a month. And frankly, it's all they wanted. And they wanted answers fast when it happened to them. So the first thing we do in looking at how often I should have a business review with a client is what are their needs for them and for us. So you need to meet with them. There's the running joke of how long should an essay be, as long as a woman's skirt, short enough to cover the top, short enough to keep attention, long enough to cover the topic type of thing. And so it's sort of the same for the QBR agenda, is that you really need to give them the QBR that they deserve and want. So taking a look at what makes sense for a client, often by value, effort, and their needs, is a great place to start. One of those things that you can do is, once you've decided, okay, we're going to have a business review, you start by sending the agenda 2 weeks in advance. The reason you would send it in advance is a couple of things. One, it should be a collaborative agenda. If you want to get a business owner to the table, they need to believe that it's going to provide them value, and that you're going to talk about helping their business be better, not just about your business. If they believe that it is just a sales call, they're definitely more likely not to join the party. But if you send them an agenda that talks about, is your business expanding? What are your business goals for this year? Where are your business pain points? What are the things you're doing manually, right? As IT business owners, you are absolutely the right people to have conversations about ways to turn manual or undefined processes into automation. So if you start asking them questions about expansion, are you getting new locations? Are you adding new employees, et cetera? They realize that the conversation they're going to have with you is about their business and growing their business. And it's going to be tied into technology and efficiencies and, of course, security, right? What are the risks? What are the things keeping you up at night? Are you concerned about ransomware, breaches, the types of things that are in the news? Setting the stage a couple weeks in advance does a couple things. First, it shows the value you're going to deliver at the business review, but it also gives them an opportunity to be a partner in this conversation. And if they have any hot ticket items, customer success problems, they can reach out right then. So I would often send this out 2 weeks in advance. And if one of my clients sent back ticket 1539 has my team in a tizzy, I would not wait for a business review to have that conversation. If you've ever walked in thinking you're going to have a strategic conversation and someone has a tactical fire, you know that those tactics are going to win out every time. So if you get that email back saying they want to talk about 1539 and why it's not going well for your team, it's your opportunity to fix that customer success issue right there, right? Call them and say, your customer satisfaction is too important to me. I don't want to wait 2 weeks to solve this problem. Let's dig in. I've escalated it. When you resolve that problem in advance, by the time you get to the business review, their customer satisfaction will be up, and hopefully that will be well past, and they'll be ready to talk strategy with you. So that's the first piece in the shell of our talk about QBRs, of why we want to drive an agenda in advance. Now we're going to put the wrapper on the other side of that at the end, but now we're going to talk about the protein, the meat of what's in the taco or the QBR. So the first piece is looking at a budget. So and I'm going to dig into the platform and show you what this looks like, but a budget drives a couple conversations. I've got the 5-year budget up here. We also do a 6-quarter detailed tactical budget of all the pieces that are going to be replaced upcoming. But to have this wide budget that shows them ebbs and flows in spending, or maybe where you can project out, we're going to move to hardware as a service and level out spending, is a very strategic conversation and a huge win. If you've never been able to deliver this to your clients, imagine the wow factor when you are delivering to them a full budget beyond your services, but for all of their contracts, etc. Risk, that's absolutely the driving factor in conversations at a business review. So do you have a risk assessment that you deliver regularly? I ask folks this all of the time, and I hear ranges of answers from, yes, I've got an Excel doc that I check off every quarter, to, well, I kind of ask discovery questions the same way, to not really, I just know what my clients want. But the more you want to put a process in place for your business review, first, the more compliant you will be, right? The more you are moving them to a state of compliance, and the more you can track this and improve metrics. What is inspected is what is expected. And so as they start looking at the assessment over time and the results, any business owner, typically competitive, that's why they're owning the business, they are not going to want to look at this and see a 44 for hardware. They're going to say, why is my hardware red, and what can I do to fix it? As a matter of fact, one of our partners put in the MSP Geek Slack channel the other day, can we just title the platform like #get the red out report? Because I just tell my clients they need to get the red out. It's kind of gamification. For the project summary, so this is when we're going to tie together the assessment items with the risk items. So you can only see the first half of this where I've pulled together the assets, but I'm going to show you how we can tie that into the assessment and risk. And then finally, I mentioned the other side for the other half of the wrapper. So this is the meat of your business review. The other side of the wrapper is the executive summary. And this is, if you think about how busy executives are, when they come to your meeting, if they're anything like you are and that I'm like, where we've been Zoom to Zoom to Zoom to Zoom, right? Back to backs all day, even if they're in person, when they walk out of your meeting, they can only remember a few pieces of it. So you need to leave them a summary of their top risks and your recommendations. I have one client, I thought this was interesting. They don't call it an exec summary. They just call it TLDR, too long, don't read, right? If you can't do it, if you can't take anything else away from this business review, the recommendations we're making here are what's key. Now, I'm sure many of you are thinking like, oh yeah, I'll agree. That all seems like good stuff for a business review, but that doesn't seem like enough. But if you think about what I've presented, it's been the shell and the protein. They're of course the toppings, right? So the toppings would be, do you have charts and graphs that show where their current state? Do you have their asset list to talk about warranty renewals, end of life, asset lifecycle management? User lists, so you can talk over security scores, security awareness, etc. So all of those inventories. These are typically supporting documents, not primary documents, because the primary documents are really aligned to their business roadmap, right? So the IT budget forecast, the project recommendation forecast, and their risk and how we're going to mitigate those risks. So that's what I picture landing in a business review. Feel free to chime in the chat if you want to add some other components. And I'm going to log into Lifecycle Insights to show you how we get there and what that looks like while you do that. Actually, before I log in, I'm going to do one more thing and talk about how we're going to grab your data in case you want to automate these pieces. Now, it is no secret to us that you absolutely could build all of these pieces. Your IT folks, a good Excel spreadsheet, some Power BI, some pivot tables, et cetera, could be built. So our goal was to automate this for you. So I was out with my business partners and I, two of them and I were out looking for a problem to solve when I ran into Alex Farling, who was an MSP. And I literally ran into him on a volleyball court. We'd been playing volleyball together for years and had never really discussed business. But when I told him our background was in data and reporting, we asked, did you have any business problems in the IT space to solve? And he said, yes, I spent 6 hours today cobbling together Excel spreadsheets in order to build a business review. Could you solve that problem? So that is the problem we aim to deliver and to drive strategy in the conversation, because that is what I did with customer success, is move it from a tactical, these are all the tickets I solved for you, do you want to yell at me about anything else conversation, to a more, what are the goals you're trying to accomplish? And maybe we have some strategies we can talk about on how to get there. So the first thing that we did was decide we needed some integration. So before I dive into the platform, take a look at this screen, because this is where you can kind of decide, like, yep, I may be interested, or no, I've had enough and now I'm hungry for tacos, I'm going to go grab some lunch. So one of the top 2 rows is what we need for a primary integration. I peeled it out into IT Glue at the top because that's separate from the PSA. So you would need one of the following: IT Glue, Manage, Autotask, Halo, or Synchro. So one of those is your primary. Why? Because we're going to go grab your assets, your companies, and your contacts so we can pull all the data together. We supplement that data with Microsoft 365, LineGuard, also Breach Secure Now, a couple more coming in those realms as well. And then we do warranty lookups on Dell, Lenovo, HP, Microsoft Surface, Cisco, Meraki, and SmartNet. If you follow us anywhere in the space, you'll know this weekend we launched a light version of our platform that's just a warranty lookup tool. So if you're thinking, I just want to take a little bite of this elephant taco, not the full spiel, you might want to ask about the, it's called AIR, Asset Insights Reporting, but that's just a warranty lookup component. So I have a question in chat. Any chance CyberGuard 360 is on the radar? I absolutely would be happy to. So I'll tell you what I'll do. So I've got a couple questions in chat for the people listening. I'll read them aloud. First, any chance CyberGuard 360 is on the radar? We have several security awareness reports or platforms that we're aiming to integrate with. That is definitely one that we have taken votes on. We're just biting these off as we have gotten votes for them. So Breach Secure Now, largest population of our clients use Breach Secure Now. The one that we're tackling this month is KnowBe4. So that is next. Every quarter, we let our partners know what the next grouping of integrations will be. I'm happy to share that when we deliver it for the next quarter. So Timothy, to your question, absolutely happy to share the products that we're aiming to work with and prioritizing. So our next meeting right now, like I said, KnowBe4 is on that list. But when I'll email out this recording and I'll include kind of our current roadmap. We're happy to make our quarterly roadmap public. So now I'm going to head out of here and jump into the platform so you can see what it looks like. So our initial integration, you plug in API keys, takes you about 20 minutes, takes us about 40 minutes on the back end to do the magic there. And we're aiming to go look up, again, all of your assets. And to do that, we're going to drive a data quality score. And I can see a couple of comments in the chat, which I will get to when I'm finished with this screen. So we're going to drive a data quality score because we have found, frankly, that the longer folks have been putting information into the PSA, it may or may not have some duplicates or be a little messy. So we're going to help you clean that up, which is why we deliver a missing data report as well. We have a lot of folks that have delineated, the owner is doing the VCIO conversation and they have a tech, a tier 1 or an intern that can go get some of this data collection, which helps reduce the prep time for a business review, because that's the initial goal is, right, we need to do more of these and we need to have a process in place to do them smoothly. So we're grabbing that information so that we can build an asset list for you. So with the asset list, we give you reporting around all of your asset types as well as the individual assets below. This is all customizable. Everything in Lifecycle Insights is customizable. So we'll just run with that story. Feel free to ask if you have specific questions. But one of the features of Lifecycle Insights is that you have the ability to swatch. And by swatching, you can see over my columns, I've got red, yellow, blue, and green. It's stoplight reporting. Red is bad, green is good. And I might say, I know I need to replace all of those hot mess Windows 7 machines that are out there, but what else is red? So if I swatch away the blue, green, and yellow, you can see I get a report that I could deliver. That's all of the operating systems that, we're going to need to get rid of these devices and start fresh. I could download this report or I can email it. And I can even schedule this email report for delivery. So if I always want to schedule out which operating systems have expired, I can do that. And however I set these filters is how my report delivers. So I could filter by specific asset type. We have some folks that start with servers and workstations, and the data quality must be perfect. We expect warranties on those, and we expect them to not be at end of life. Now, if you use some of the other warranty lookup tools that are out there, we do not sell third-party warranties, but the rest of the reporting, I think you can see that we provide some more functionality and flexibility in those pieces. So that's the asset list. The user list, very customizable as well. I'm going to turn off the Breach Secure Now settings for this one, so that you can see what it would look like if you didn't use one of the security awareness trainings that we have. So here I'm looking for clients that are in my primary integration as well as in Microsoft 365. Demo data shows a mess of tons of people who are not in ConnectWise that are in Microsoft. So am I paying for licenses that I shouldn't be paying for? Are you paying for licenses you shouldn't be paying for? And in the last column, I have this set at a month. So why haven't these folks haven't logged in over a month, right? That could be a security concern that I need to address. All right, I'm going to take a look at the chat for a second. So I've got, would it be possible to select multiple boards for tickets and create a port? So Peter, I will get to that one at the end. When I show you Report Builder, I'll show you what you can pull in terms of boards. So thank you for asking that. So that is the user list. And then I'm going to jump to contracts. So if you remember some of the meat, like one of the big pieces we need to deliver at a business review is a full total cost of ownership. Lots of people do the asset reporting piece, right? That in and of itself can take a good bit of time. One of our partners says it used to take him 12 hours to build a budget. Now it's just always live in Lifecycle. So he appreciates the time savings. But we can pull over your contracts, agreements, sub-additions, I think is what they're called in Autotask. We can pull them over so that we can place them onto the budget for you. And you can also add additional items manually. I was talking to a prospect this morning who said, ooh, we're a VoIP provider. We really want to know when their Ring Central, Mighty Call, whatever it is, contract is expiring so that we could upsell into our VoIP service. So this is where you can add phone copier services or copier services, printer services, phone services, ISP, et cetera, that you might be able to drive them toward your solution. So all of these components, whether we pull it in from your contract or add it as a third party, will push to our budget forecast. And that really drives the conversation. Again, if you haven't delivered a budget to your clients before, imagine the impact this makes if you're helping them schedule 1 year down the road, 2 years down the road, 3 years down the road. When you're having that conversation and not blindsiding them with it, they see you as that long-term partner. We have tons of flexibility around the budgeting. We can do monthly, quarterly, yearly. You can certainly see their options on the screen, up to 12 periods. So again, I mentioned at the beginning, our partners typically send a 6-quarter detail budget of every asset that's going to replace so that they know that these 5 workstations are going to cause an interruption for Gail and Patty, Liz, Steve, and the point of sale system. Right? But then at the same time, they deliver a 5-year spreadsheet view So if this was a client that typically paid $12,000 a year, but in 3 years they've got a couple servers come due, you don't want to blindside them with the $20,000 expense. You could talk about how you're going to adjust some other things, right? Because that becomes a conversation of how they're going to make that expense, not if they're going to. You could talk about cloud services, hardware as a service, any of those types of things. It makes a much more strategic conversation, much less anxious, much less anxious conversation than if you just blindsided them with it. So I like to draw a hard line here. So if you're taking notes, you draw a hard line there, that these pieces are all the ones that we automate. So these are all the toppings and like supporting documentation to help you have deeper conversation around client risk and their strategic views or their strategic conversations. So that is what assessments are for. So I'm diving into a particular assessment event. If you have questions about assessments, please feel free to throw them in the chat. I could talk assessments for days. When I worked in ed tech, I came from the world of assessment. So I literally could speak of this for days. So in here, we have about 10 pre-canned templates, of which a large percentage of our partners grab our default assessment, which is based around industry standards. It's not the NIST standards or the CMMC, but you will definitely recognize the questions. And most revise this to meet their company's best practices. So it's completely editable. So you can either use one of our pre-canned templates, you could build one from scratch, import from CSV, or you can edit this to make it your own. I'll collapse the categories just to give you a sense of what categories we talk about. So hardware, security, continuity, business application software, policy and procedure, strategy and regulatory compliance. Within the items, you can add public comments that are going to show up on the printout, private comments. So this would be like, okay, team, they said next quarter we were going to be able to work on this. So let's really push it in our next business review. And a really important part is you can show previous comments and previous responses. So if this has been read for 3 quarters, it's time for you to lay down the law and say, okay, it's time for us to have a conversation. You know, you said you were going to address this. You can see lots of places in the platform. You've probably already seen it twice where you can create PSA tickets. So if you're doing this business review and you've decided like, okay, this is the recommendation we're going to make, or you are reviewing it and say, okay, I need to start a ticket to make this happen. You can create it from here or inside a recommendation or an asset, etc. The other 2 pieces you can do in here is you can add scoring instructions. So a lot of people link to their IT Glue documentation right in here or Hoodoo documentation to say, this is how we're going to score this particular item. Very powerful if you're trying to scale this beyond the business owner answering this from the top of their head. And you can also add explanation remediation tips. So this is the ability for you to say, if this is red, this is how we're going to fix it. This is what we're recommending to do it our way. Once you've done the assessment, then you can connect the dots. So I'm going to go into my scoring for this assessment, and I'm just going to randomly grab a couple of these at-risk items. But suppose all of these at-risk items could be solved by eliminating those pesky Windows 7 machines. So I'm going to now connect the dots for your business owners. And think about the power of that. I've got at-risk items that the business owner understands, cares about. And I'm going to associate it to the assets that we need to replace, which they're less inclined to carry about serial number D8XRH14, right? But they understand it's going to solve some business pain. So it connects those dots really nicely. So recommendations was part of the meat of the QBR because it helps you drive the conversation forward without just talking about flux capacitors and widgets and gadgets, et cetera, that the business owner would have less knowledge about. So that is really a key component to the assessment delivery, is to be able to talk about the really not just the risk, but what you're doing to mitigate the risk. And that's why we have the recommendations. I popped back into an assessment to show you I have the ability to do a comparison assessment. So you can see, if you look in the left-hand column, there's an asterisk where I scored this assessment before. And I can move the needle and say, you know, here's where we were and here's where we are now. So that comparison report is a good way to show your client. Let me grab my old assessment. So this is where we were at 48%, and we moved the needle to 71%. You can see we addressed hardware. We moved the needle quite a bit. We have some more to go. And really, in doing that, now we need to address the business application software that has aged out since we last spoke. One thing for Lifecycle Insights is you can do pre-sales assessments for free on anyone. So you can actually do assessments for free on anyone. The subscription is counting the number of folks that we're building out the reports to the asset list, the user list, the budget forecast. But if you have at least our basic package up to 5 clients, you can do assessments for anyone. So all of this reporting that I'm showing you now would be available. So we believe that doing risk assessments helps drive your business and is better for your client's business. So we want to give that to you as a tool to help you grow your business. We think that is best for all. So I've kind of tied the pieces together, right? We've got all of this supporting documentation. We've tied it together with the risk assessment in terms of a recommendation. So now what does it look like to present the business review? Down here, you can see I've got Report Builder. Report Builder is really a portfolio where you get to define what you want to deliver in your business review. So I can create my own, the world's your oyster, any of these options, which are basically all the reports on the left-hand side, you can use to drive your business review. You can have multiple versions of this. So some of our partners have like a mini version, a monthly report that they send out with a larger quarterly one, and then their annual one is a full stack of all of the pieces. So we talked at the beginning how you might want to divide up your client base into those that get, you know, monthly cadence, quarterly cadence versus annual. This is where you may decide what that looks like as well. I'm going to go ahead and grab my favorite template, cleverly titled Marnie's Favorite Template. And in here, you can see we have our default agenda, an executive summary, the assessment summary. So you can now see these are all of the reports that I showed you along the left-hand side, including any of the pre-built reports like asset near warranty expiration. So in this report, I changed my columns. I said I want it to be pre-swatched so that we're only looking at warranties that are expiring or about to expire. Same thing for end of life. And I can decide I want to show the chart or not show the chart. Whatever settings I have it on is the way it'll keep it when I go to rebuild it again. So right now I'm in creative designs, but if I jump to Get Well Medical Services, you can see it builds the exact same stack of reports for Get Well with their data. So once you've really defined your process, you can replicate it over and over again. We hear all the time that we save folks between 2 to 12 hours in building these reports. So I hope that would be true for you. Peter, you mentioned tickets and boards. So we have the ability to pull your boards from Manage, et cetera, and then you can grab, you could build 5 of these, but you would have to single select a board at a time. So we could show that overall view. Our goal is not to replace the ticketing system, but to give you just the high level insights that you could look at when it comes to tickets. You also have the ability within any of the places where you can create a ticket in Lifecycle Insights, you can also view it or go right to Manage, to go take a look at your ticket. So depending on what your workflow is, there are different ways you could use the ticketing component. Happy to explain more if that doesn't answer your question. You can download this. So a lot of folks download it. If you've seen us at a show, then you probably saw us with this in kind of spiral bound that we give out as the QBR your customer deserves. But we also have presentation mode, and presentation mode really gives you the ability to present without having to create a separate PowerPoint slide. So you can, overlay this on another screen. It's exactly what I just showed you. but it hides the rest of the noise of the platform. And the other thing it does is it gives you the power to drill in. So if you just had a PowerPoint slide deck and somebody said, hey, whoa, what's the $4,000 I'm spending in network equipment this year? You can easily just expand and say, oh, remember we talked about those 2 sonic walls that need replacing. So there's a lot of power in being able to just have that function right within the platform. So that gets me down to report builder. So I'm going to pause here and ask how we're doing, if we have questions on this, before I show you one more piece. I was a high school math teacher, so that 7-second awkward pause, I can do that all day. All right. I'll keep an eye out for any chats. Just a couple other pieces. One would be, we do have the notion of being able to schedule, creating your cadence. I want to meet with this client monthly, quarterly, semi-annually, annually, etc. And then I can drill into any of those to take a look at business review. And in that, this is where many folks start a business review by kicking off a ticket, right? So they'll create a PSA ticket that says start business review process, put that standard operating procedure in place and really work their way through a process. Or when they're finished a business review, to add all of the artifacts, you can see I have them at the bottom, and create a ticket for each of the action items so I can follow up and I can just check the status. This will sync right back from ConnectWise. I can see the notes that have been taken in ConnectWise or in Lifecycle, and it will give me the status here so I can see if they've been closed. So there's a ton of power in that process. So that's kind of the last piece to round out the business review, right? We started with defining a cadence for them, sending out an agenda, the meat and potatoes of it, or the meat and cilantro of it, and then coming back with the follow-up, because that's key, and not letting things fall off the plate. So I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint for a quick second, because I want to give you a couple pieces, and then I'm going to jump into just show you where you can sign up for a free trial if you're interested. First, if you would like to chat business reviews with or without Lifecycle Insights, you can find me on LinkedIn. I am always happy to chat. I'm going to cut and, oh, no, I'll come back to that in just a sec. So that coupon code I'll put in the chat is Taco Tues at 2. That will get you 50% off your first 2 paying months if you use that code. We do have a free 30-day trial if you're interested in seeing what this looks like. I'm just gonna stop this PowerPoint for a second so that I can cut and paste that bit.ly link. So this is a link to our standard operating procedure doc. One of our partners gave us this. This is the process that he uses to prep for his business review. And he, as the owner, is only involved 15 minutes before the business review and 15 minutes after and the hour of the business review, because he has got everybody assigned to their task and the process. The other thing I'm going to put in the chat is the QBR your customer deserves. So if you want to see what the reports look like printed out, if you want to dig into the assessment, we've kind of built a mock one in there that you can take a look at. And the last thing I will show you is, if you are interested in signing up, what that looks like. So we have lots of options now. We pushed out a release on Saturday with 2 new products. So I feel like now I should navigate our pricing page for you. So free VCIO trial on the left side, either this one here or here. It is $75 a month after the free 30 days, up to 5 active clients. If you use the slider, you can see the pricing and how it goes up by number of clients. I highly recommend, even if you have 100 managed clients, start with 5, and then as you get to your next business review, grow in the package by then. That way we can make sure your data's in, it looks the way you want, you have your process set up, etc. So that is this piece. That is everything that I showed you today. So that's the whole kit and caboodle. If by chance you're interested in customer success, where we have lots of other tools, I'm always happy to jump on a call to share that with you. And then I also mentioned that we have a lighter version, which is just that asset report. So the dashboard, the asset insights with the ability to ship and deliver reporting to you or your clients via email. So that's basically our warranty lookup tool. That is just a standalone package, unlimited customers, unlimited assets, unlimited users. That's an additional $79 a month. That is included in the VCIO package for those 5 customers. It just happens to be unlimited. So if you're interested in any of those, this is the one we talked about today that really delivers the full QBR piece. But we have lots of folks that like to start, I mentioned at the beginning, like how we're going to bite that elephant taco one bite at a time. If you're interested in a smaller piece, those are some ways to step into it. So any questions for me about QBRs, about knitting, maybe some high school math? We can do some polynomials on the whiteboard behind me, or whether or not I like cilantro, which we've all decided I do. Scoping out the chat. Polynomials are scary. You just needed me as your pre-calculus teacher. That is all. They wouldn't have been so bad, I promise. Although I'm very glad I don't have to teach remotely these days, for sure. That would have been more of a challenge. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. I will send out this recording, and I will include notes with our product roadmap in it for the next quarter, and then let you know when we're planning on what other integrations are coming, since that's what folks ask about. If you have any questions, please reach out anytime. I will put my email in the chat as well. Not hard to figure out. It's marnie.stockman@lifecycleinsights.io. Thanks so much for joining me today. Have good ones.